Hello, ladies from Tahoe, and welcome to our weekly Women's Wellness Circle. Today, we're going to be talking all about New Year's resolutions. Are they helpful or are they harmful? I'm going to be sharing with you the ways that I've learned to reframe New Year's resolutions to take them from something that once caused me a lot of distress, disappointment, and depression to actually being something that is uplifting, empowering, and encouraging and motivating for me to reach those goals and create the desires that I really have for myself. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And I'm curious, and feel free to share, your experience in the comments. Have you ever had maybe a pattern or even a couple of years where you've set New Year's resolutions for yourself, and time again, for whatever reason, they're just not being achieved? You wake up the next year and you look back on those resolutions that you set for yourself and realize that you're still waiting to accomplish those things, or they're still on your to-do list, or they're desires that you don't yet have in your life. And I know that I was there so many years myself. And after a while, I was like, I thought New Year's resolutions were supposed to be helpful, were supposed to be goals that I could set and achieve and be really proud of. And I'm just feeling disappointed, and I'm just feeling getting more down on myself. That doesn't feel like it's the point. And so I started to take a look at why that was. What was going on with this whole New Year's resolution thing that everyone seems to get so caught up in at the beginning of any new year? And I think even more so at the beginning of 2020, this brand new decade. We all love new beginnings. They feel like fresh starts. They feel like a new opportunity to start fresh, start something new, do something that we want to do that we haven't yet done. It's kind of like a clean slate, a fresh journal that you're opening up, a brand new story that you can create for yourself. And I imagine if you're here, if you're in this community, that you probably want to make the most of that. You want it to be helpful, effective, and really allow you to achieve what it is you most desire. You don't want to end this year 300 and I think it's a leap year, so a few less days or more days, but you don't want to end this year, brand new year, looking back and feeling and thinking like, oh man, I really wish I could have done X, Y, Z. I wish I'd achieved that for myself. So if you're open to it, feel free to share what your experience with New Year's resolutions has been up until this point. Have you found them to be helpful? Have you had a history of achieving them? Or have you had a history of putting the same things on that to-do list, on that New Year's resolution list year after year, and built up some disappointment or resentment or sadness around them? I know that for myself, when there are things that I put on my to-do list month after month or year after year that I continuously don't achieve or don't accomplish, it builds up this feeling almost of self-betrayal, of not feeling like I can trust myself to do the things that I set out to do. And I think there's so many things that go into that. And I don't ever for a second believe that it has anything to do with your capability of doing those things or my capability of doing those things that I set out to achieve. I do think a lot of it has to do with the expectations that we set for ourselves, the time frames that we set for ourselves, the pressures that we put on ourselves, and really just the perspective that we have on those goals or the way that we're setting them up for ourselves. So today I'm going to be sharing with you all about the paradigm shift I've created around the new year, around New Year's resolutions, and what I do now instead that has been so much more effective, so much more successful, and really allowed me to make those meaningful changes that I set out to, that I once used New Year's resolutions as a way to sort of put a framework around what I wanted to achieve. Yeah, Angela just said, the time frame is what gets me most, I think. And that's where I really want to start today, is around the time frame that we set on our New Year's resolutions, because just in the name of New Year's resolutions, with that comes, okay, these are the things that I resolve to do this year in this new year. And oftentimes the idea is, okay, I've started this new year. I made this list of resolutions. I used to make lists of resolutions that probably had like 10 to 50 things on them. Imagine the pressure that you might feel if you put 50 things that you want to achieve in a year. And a year is a long time, yes. And you still have like all your day-to-day things. You probably either have a job or children or other life responsibilities that also take your time. And so, one of the things that we really want to shift is the idea that then just because it's a new year doesn't mean this is our one and only chance at changing our lives. And that's the first thing that I threw out. I was like, I love New Year's and fresh starts just as much as the next person, and I'm going to do everything I can to take full advantage of that. But to me, I'm not actually taking best advantage of it if I'm setting myself up for failure, for disappointment, and for building up that or continuing that pattern of self-betrayal, of feeling like I didn't accomplish things. So when we look at the time frame, the first thing that I have shifted for myself that's massively changed is, instead of setting a big list of New Year's resolutions and all these things I want to accomplish in the new year, I've begun to look at the year in quarters. So being 4 quarters in the year, and what do I want to accomplish in these next 90 days? Or even breaking it down smaller sometimes. It kind of depends on like where I'm at, what I need most. Have I just pushed a lot, done a bunch of things, and now I need more like self-love and self-care? Or am I like ready to hit the ground running, have some big goals that need some more time? So the first shift I really encourage you to make, if it feels good to you, is, instead of looking at what's a whole list of things I want to achieve in the year, what is a list of things that I want to achieve in the next 90 days or a month? And to really look at that, what are my resolutions for this month? What are my resolutions for these 90 days? Whether you want to use the term resolutions, or a lot of people I know use intentions. That's something that I tend to use. And I found that breaks it down into a way that is a lot more manageable. Because the other thing that happens when we write a big list of things we want to achieve in the year, and let me know if this is something you've experienced too, but a lot of people get that fire, that motivation to hit the ground running January 1st. Like, they go to the gym every single day for the first 2 weeks, and then they get burnt out. Other things get in the way. We kind of get into that slump of like, here's the motivation when you start a goal. It goes up, 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 you peak, you're like doing really great, and then like you're gonna hit slumps, and it kind of just goes like that until you eventually like accomplish the goal or give up on the goal. And when you let those slumps kind of get you down, that's generally when we give up. So when we set these like big audacious goals for a whole year, what can happen is we can get really fired up at the beginning, and then when it doesn't happen fast enough, we tend to lose steam and kind of forget about it. Or on the flip side, some people are like, oh, I have the whole year. I don't really have to start doing anything anytime soon for this goal. I have a whole year to accomplish this. And then they forget about it, and they get to the end of the year having not done that thing and looking back and wondering what happened. So really, a smaller time frame allows us to chunk down those bigger goals. And that's the second thing and shift that I'm going to go into now, is chunking down your big, huge goals into 30 or 90-day timeframes of like, what's a smaller piece of that bigger goal that you can have greater focus, more direction about in just the next 30 or 90 days. So I'll give you an example of what this looks like. So one of my really big intentions and sort of like resolutions, for lack of a better term, or like to put it in the context of what we're talking about today, is I really want, my goal and like my intention is to really put my health and my well-being and essentially how I feel in my own body first. That's just something I want to prioritize this year for many, many reasons. And so I've broken it down a couple ways. The first was, well, my wedding is in September, so that's in like end of Q2, beginning of Q3, or sorry, end of Q3, beginning of Q4, somewhere in there. It's like about 3/4 of the way through the year. So that's like, okay, I'm not focusing on where I want to be by my wedding right now. I'm just like, what are the things like that I really can put in place? What are the habits that I can shift? What are some new consistent actions that I can start taking in these next 90 days to support this much bigger, longer term goal? And so that first piece for me, the first two things I've done is I joined it's like a weight loss diet lifestyle. It's basically like a habit change app around diet and what you're eating. And so that was the first thing. I joined that. I'm doing that program. I'm doing it with my partner. And I'm really focusing on being consistent with that for the next, 90 days or much more. The second thing I'm doing is like, I'm looking at my schedule. I'm looking at how can I bring in movement and exercise into my life on a daily basis that feels really good to me. And what kind of container and consistency can I set up that feels good to me? So do you see how instead of looking at this goal as, oh, by my wedding, I want to like, I don't know, I don't like to set lots of like, personally, I don't set like goal weights or like size weights or things like that. It's more like, how do I want to feel in my body? But I know I'm not going to get there tomorrow. And I also know I'm not going to get there by putting it off until like the month or 2 months before my wedding. Hi, Moni. Oh, so glad to have you here. So yeah, the second shift to really make is like, how can you chunk down these big goals? Or maybe if you're someone who's been doing resolutions in the past, and maybe you even created resolutions for this year, how can you take those really big picture goals and chunk them down into 30 or 90 day goals or focuses or action steps to take? And the next piece is really around the mindset shift. Because again, like so much of us achieving our goals of creating the happiness, the fulfillment, the joy that we really desire in our lives starts with our mindset. I think that the most harmful thing about New Year's resolutions in my personal experience and like the way that they've worked in my own life is going back to that idea of like setting myself up for disappointment by creating this like mountain of a list of things I want to do in 1 year, and then pressuring myself to achieve it all in that 1 year, and then getting to the end of the year and feeling like if I didn't achieve all those things, then this year was a failure, or I'm a failure, or I'm not good enough. And so we really, like, it's so, so, so important for us to shift our thinking around that. And I think that the first two strategies I just shared help support shifting our mindsets, because we're starting to take the time pressure off. We're starting to chunk it down into more manageable, actionable steps and a way to focus on it. And so then the third piece is like, how can we bring in more gentleness, more compassion, more self-love, more self-encouragement around these goals? And I think one of the best ways to do this is to shift from looking at, what am I not doing yet? What have I not achieved yet? What do I still have to do? To looking at and focusing on, what have I done? What have I achieved? What steps have I already taken? That is so key, because when we focus on what we don't yet have, what we haven't done, we are focusing on lack. We are focusing on the not having of that thing. And if you know much about the law of attraction or study it or follow it, like you probably are hearing a lot of this in what I'm saying. Like, we attract what we focus on. Where our energy is focused is what is brought into our life, what we get more of, what we receive. So when we're focused on how we're not doing enough, we tend to tend to see that evidence, and we notice all the ways in our lives, like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I don't have this yet. It's not good enough yet. But when we shift that focus into, okay, this is what I've done today, and really congratulating ourselves, encouraging ourselves, celebrating ourselves, appreciating ourselves. One of my mentors has said, what we appreciate appreciates. And it's true. When we appreciate ourselves for what we are doing, we often feel more encouraged to do even more, to go even further. Whereas when we're beating ourselves up for not doing enough, personally, when I do that, it just makes me want to curl up on the couch, like with a bag of potato chips, and binge on some Netflix and just like ignore all the things that I haven't yet done or achieved. But when I'm encouraging myself, when I'm looking at my to-do list and checking off like the little things and writing the little things and acknowledging myself for doing those little things, it really encourages me to do so much more. I feel energized to do more. I feel encouraged to do more because I'm like, wow, look at all I have done. Look at what I've accomplished. And that goes back to the chunking it down into these smaller steps. Like, I write down really little things on my to-do list just so I can really consciously be building up evidence and focus and attention on what I'm accomplishing, what I'm achieving. Because we're so, like, our culture is so about more. What have we not done yet? What do we need to do? And so we really have to consciously shift our focus into what I am already doing. And that will give you that energy, that motivation to do a lot more. So those are really the 3 shifts that I wanted to share with you today. The first being changing the time frame around your resolutions, taking the pressure off of having to achieve 50,000 things this year and looking at what is most important to me in the next 30 or 90 days. And you can start with the big picture of like, where would I love to be this time next year? Where would I love to be when I enter 2021? I mean, that is an amazing, super helpful way to frame this for yourself, to really get down to the core of like what you desire most, what's most important to you. And then once you have those big picture goals, look at what is most important for my next 90 days or next 30 days, or what is like the next step I need to take within that goal that can move me closer to it, and have that smaller focus in a shorter time frame so that you can maintain the energy, maintain the focus, maintain the intensity around it. And then break that down, which is number 2, break it down even further into smaller, more manageable, bite-sized action steps. One of the things that, especially if you're someone who is struggling with depression, which I know many of the women in this group are, because that's what my specialty is, what I often tell my clients who are struggling with depression, because taking action and goals can feel like 10 to 100,000 times more overwhelming when you're in that place, is to break it down. Like, the way I frame it is, what is one teeny tiny itty bitty little action step that feels so small, it's almost like you almost giggle, you're like, oh, maybe that isn't even worth it because it's so small. But no, it's so small that it feels super easy, and you know without a shadow of a doubt that you can take that one action, because that's all you need to do. You just need to take that one next itty bitty teeny tiny little action towards your goal in order to start creating the momentum, in order to start moving the needle. And then once you've taken that one super easy step, then you could ask yourself, okay, now I'm one step closer from this new place that I'm standing now, that I've achieved that last little action. What's the next itty bitty super small thing that I know that I can do? And whether or not you're struggling with depression, that can be a really beautiful and powerful way to break down your goals into action steps that are manageable, that like you will do because you're like, oh, this is so easy. I know without a shadow of a doubt I can do that thing. So yeah, that's a great way if you're feeling the overwhelm around goals or actions. Like that has been really powerful. Like it could literally be as simple as like, I'm going to be sure to drink a glass of water today. If like your goal is something around health or something, like, or if your goal is around like happiness, like what your one itty bitty thing could even be like, today I am going to brainstorm a list of 3 things that I know help me to feel uplifted. You don't even have to do them yet. Like, it's just like, how can you break down that bigger thing into an even smaller thing? Almost every action step or every goal can be broken down even further than you already are. And that is such a powerful way to get out of that overwhelm and start moving forward. And then again, the key, which is the third shift that I shared with you around our mindset, is like we have to, one, acknowledge what we've done, acknowledge our accomplishment, no matter how big or how small you feel like it is, and appreciate yourself, acknowledge yourself, and celebrate yourself for having done it. Because it's one more step in that direction of that goal. So when I was posting about our weekly Women's Circle today, I said that first I was going to share these shifts with you, and then we're actually going to use these shifts to break down our New Year's resolutions and take them from a place of like, maybe they've felt discouraging, uncomfortable, unattainable in the past, to like real resolutions that you can feel good about because you know that you can achieve them. You know that you can do them because you're breaking them down in a way that feels manageable instead of overwhelming. So that is what we're going to do right now. And I encourage you to just kind of going back to that first, like that way of like, how can you take maybe how you've been doing New Year's resolutions in the past and apply this new framework. So it's perfect timing that we're doing this on the 2nd, because I imagine many of you having, celebrated New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I would imagine that some things have been percolating around like what's really important to you this year. Where would you like to be a year from now? What would you like to achieve or have achieved when you walk into 2021? What's maybe that big focus you have for this year? What's like the biggest goal you have? What is most important to you? And full permission, this thing that you're thinking of right now can change anytime that you want throughout the year. So there's zero pressure right now to pick the perfect thing. There's no such thing as the perfect thing. Just pick whatever comes to mind, whatever comes to you first. Like I trust your intuition, and we'll just focus on that for right now. And I would love for you to share in the comments with us, what is that thing that's calling to you? What feels most important in this new year? What is your number one focus right now in this moment, with full permission and knowing that it can change at any time, and that is absolutely okay. So I'll let you guys kind of share those if you'd like in the comments. So now that you have this idea of what is that big focus for 2020, what would you love to walk out of this year having done or achieved or been, whatever it may be. And now, having that goal in mind or that resolution in mind, what is most important for you to do in order to move towards that in the next 30 or 90 days? You get to pick your time frame, whatever you desire it to be. It doesn't even have to be 30 or 90 days. That's just what I personally use. So how can you break that down? What's like the first 1 to 3 steps that you can take within the next 30 or 90 days or whatever your chosen time frame is that can move you forward towards that goal. I'll give you a little bit of time to just let that percolate. And again, know like you can use these steps well beyond our women's circle. I'm just sharing the action steps with you today, and we're just walking through this exercise so you have a chance to really experience what this process is like. And then you can always come back to this video and do this around any of your resolutions or goals and have more, time to really think through it all if you would like to. So Moni says that her big focus for 2020 is genuine connection, personally and professionally. Beautiful. It's so funny that you say that. I'm not at all surprised, especially because you and I chat about this just recently. I just got off a call with one of my mentors right like an hour ago, right before this call. And essentially what came out, it was like a Q1 business strategy session. And what came out of that for me was my focus for this quarter is connection and intimacy and really building those genuine connections with the people who are already in my world. And so I love that you shared that. And that's, yeah, I see that for a lot of us. Angela says her focus in terms of being is blissful and strong with life force energy. I love that combination that you shared of both blissful and strong, because sometimes I think we believe, or there's a tendency to believe, that being strong takes like force and hustle and grinding and all these things, and you don't always think of strong and blissful together. So that is just such a beautiful combination that I absolutely see for you and already see you as. So I'm excited to see really what that means in this new year for you as you bring that out even more. And so for Q1, or this first time frame, Angela says that she's going to commit to a challenge starting Sunday for a daily practice that cultivates that energy. Or I just commit to a challenge starting Sunday for a daily practice that cultivates that energy. Beautiful. And that's such a great example of like that. What's that one first step that we can take? How can we create, in this case, a ritual or a daily practice that supports that bigger vision? How can we shift our energy to support that bigger vision? What do we need to change in our own life, whether it's a habit or a ritual, to then start supporting that vision? So I love that. That's so beautiful. Tish says her focus for January is cleansing her body. And partly because she's my mom and she shared about it in this group as well, I know that she's committed to a cleanse for January. And that's such a great way to break that down. Like, instead of being like, oh, I'm going to cleanse for the whole year, I'm not going to, drink alcohol or eat sugar for the entirety of 2020, which, like, to me personally, being someone like who loves a really nice glass of champagne and like really loves my pastries, like if I tried to even pretend for a moment that I was going to cleanse for all of 2020, I would give it up instantly. I'd just be like, nope, that's way too overwhelming, feels impossible. Because sometimes the overwhelm can take a totally attainable goal from possible to impossible because of the way that we relate to that goal. So I love that, she's broken down, first the first quarter focus is clearing clutter, both physical and emotional. And then for January, it's cleansing her body. So that's such a great example of chunking down those bigger goals, even from like your Q1 goal into like, what's my goal for this month? So I love that. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing. These are just absolutely beautiful examples of this process. And I can even, knowing many of you and just like you sharing these with me, like when you say that this is your goal for the year, but then also how you're breaking it down into your focus for the next month or the next 90 days, like I feel expansion in my body. And I'm someone who, this is a random tangent, but I study human design a lot. I use it with my clients. And one of the things that is true for me is that I have an open emotional center. And that means I'm able to feel other people's emotions times 10. And so when I hear you breaking down your goals into these next steps, like I feel myself expanding. And so I imagine that probably what you're feeling when you're breaking down these goals is this feeling of expansion, this feeling of possibility, of really truly being able to achieve what it is you're desiring. And that just is key in setting you up for success, making yourself, like setting it up in a way where you believe, where you have that belief and that inner knowing and confidence that you can achieve what you're setting out to, is one of the biggest factors in determining whether or not you really will achieve that. So by doing what seems like sort of a more logical, strategic practice of like goal setting and breaking down your resolutions into these smaller, more manageable timeframes and action steps with a different mindset around it, what you're really doing is creating your goal from a place of deeper, stronger belief that you can and will achieve it. And that is everything, because what you believe, you will achieve. And I shared this quote earlier, I share it all the time because it's true time and time again. Like, if whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. So any way that you can shift things to build up your level of belief in yourself and your abilities is so powerful. It's so much more powerful than setting a list of 50 things you want to achieve and not having any trust or belief that you actually will. Angela said, the commitment made me think of you today. The couple leading this challenge are using music and embodiment in a way that is that luscious Taurus energy you have. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that you shared that, because one of the things I am starting to bring back into my, as like part of my Q1 way of breaking down my body goals, is also like, how can I bring in some really like luscious, like compassionate, self-love, caring movement and like feminine embodiment to my day every morning. And doing that through like empowering and uplifting music and moving my body. So I just love that you shared that, because it's just, that's like a perfect example of how I'm breaking down like this bigger goal into these smaller, like, how easy would it be to put on one song each morning and move my body to it? Like, I'm like, oh, I can definitely do that. And if I miss a morning, and that's the other thing, if you miss like a day or like a week or whatever, or like there's a gap in your actions, like, be gentle with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, because the truth is, and why I gave up New Year's resolutions, or at the core of it is like, the truth is that this, like, January 1st was not your one and only new beginning for the next 365 days. Like, every single day, every single moment, every single second is a new opportunity to take a different action, to change your behavior. So it doesn't matter what's happened in the past. It doesn't matter whether or not you've achieved your resolutions in the past. All that matters is what you're choosing to do with like this moment, this present moment. And so that's really where bringing in so much self-love and compassion, and not beating yourself up if you missed a few days. Like, I'll be really honest, I've been doing this this diet app thing that I was sharing about. I think we started it at the end of November. I haven't looked at any of like the exercises or like their low modules for the last 2 weeks when I've been enjoying the holiday. I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I'm going to just like restart when I get back to San Francisco on Monday, or I guess we're getting back Sunday. Like, I'm going to restart then. I'm not going to worry about it right now, and just like enjoy the rest of my holiday. And that's it. Like, just shift your perception around that perfectionism as well. Oh, hi, Tawny. It's so great to see you here. I'm so glad that you popped on. Yeah, so I think that about sums it up for today. Those are the pieces I wanted to share with you. And again, you can always go back through and repeat these steps of this process at any point in the year, if you want to get back on track, if you want to decide that, February 12th, that's your new year, you're going to turn over a new leaf and reset your intentions, your goals, and your focuses for the year, you can do this anytime. And that's really, if there's one thing that you walk away from this today with, it's just knowing that just because it's a new year doesn't mean this is your only opportunity to change your life. You have that opportunity every single day, every single moment, every single second. You have that power. So don't limit yourself by thinking that the start of the new year is the only time that you can do this, because you could do this whenever you desire. And that takes, that's when you really step into your limitlessness, into your power, by not putting these constructs around what's possible for you and what's not, or when things have to be done, and saying that things can only be done at one particular time. I'm going to check out the comments again. So Angela said, we're so in harmony right now. I was just reading a human design post about the true New Year decade, or the true New Year date. Oh, that's awesome. I love, love, love human design. It's just been so beautiful and wonderful having you all on here today. Thank you for being with us live for our weekly Women's Circle. If you got a lot out of this and want to share with your other sisters who are struggling with their New Year's resolutions, or want a helpful reframe around how to make them more powerful, more uplifting, more effective and successful than ever before, I invite you to send them a private message, share the link to this group, let them know what's been helpful for you. I'm sure they would love to join us if this is what they're looking for. And of course, we would love to have them in here. The more the merrier. And if you are looking for some support around creating these goals, if you're feeling really lost, if you're tired of being disappointed by New Year's resolutions, and you're determined to set ones that actually stick, that you can feel good about, I really want to invite you to sign up for a complimentary Breakthrough to Happiness session, where on this call we will get super clear on your vision for this new year, this first quarter of the new year. We will take a look at and dive deep into what's really been holding you back. What are the key patterns, and what is the key mindset shift that you need to make to go from maybe being disappointed by not having achieved your goals in the past to really achieving them now, going forward, and how to let go of that old pattern, to change that old pattern that's held you back. So again, these are completely free and just my way of supporting you, giving you a way to get that one-on-one personalized support to take all of this further, not have to do it on your own, get some support around the strategy and the implementation of it, and you will walk away from these Breakthrough to Happiness sessions with a mini plan of action for your next steps to take to move towards these goals, and that loving support of being seen, heard, understood, and witnessed, and of course celebrated, because you deserve that. So I will drop the link for those at the bottom of the in these comments, and also at the top of the video. So definitely grab those. I have very limited spots for the next couple of weeks, because of course it's the new year and everyone is wanting to hop on making these changes. So if this is calling to you, I would love to work with you one-on-one in that way and support you in your free Breakthrough to Happiness session. So I love you all so, so much. I hope that you have the most beautiful, incredible, empowering, uplifting, joyful, abundant new year, new decade, and first quarter, first month than ever before. You have what it takes. You have this power inside of you, and I'm here to support you in whatever way I can and celebrate you all along the way. I love you so much, from my heart to yours. Mwah. May this new year bring all of your dreams and desires coming true.